formed in a dream, kept in a thought, carried across oceans, spoken in whispers, passed down from elders, planted in gardens of okra, prayed for in sanctuary, resisted with fury, protected with faith, created with love, born into being, from root to bone. You are here.
This podcast talks about colonial, racial, and gender-based violence. Please listen at your own pace and capacity. And remember to do what you need to do to care for yourself if you feel activated by this content. Should you need resources, please check out our section on resources at decolonizingtherapy.com. Be well. Hello, my good people. This is Dr. Jen of Decolonizing Therapy. It is such a deep honor to say hello to you today, to connect with you, even across the miles, across the virtuals, across the distance. Thank you for landing here in this podcast today. I'm going to invite you, as I always do, to find a soft space, to find a place in your body, in yourself, in your mind, even if it is for the remainder of this hour and a half, to take a few breaths, recollect, notice what your body's feeling consistently, drink extra water, and to receive. And especially this place, space and time, there's so much giving and oftentimes this lack of reciprocity in receiving. And so part of what I love about doing this podcast is being able to give in a way that feels really natural and to be able to share other brilliant individuals doing the damn thing with you all. So if you've landed here, you already know this is season 2 of From Root to Bone. This is a podcast for folks like you who are parched, poised, and primed to rehydrate our souls and to do some unlearning. It's a place where I unlock the gates and have some real-ass conversations with teachers, elders, intellectual crushes, and folks doing the real-ass work towards reclaiming the juiciest parts of our ancestry, history, collective health, spirituality, and liberation. If you don't already know, I am the very proud founder of Decolonizing Therapy and the author of Decolonizing Therapy, the book. People lovingly, my students have always called me the Rage Doctor. And really my work in the world is to continue to shift the human and mental health paradigm on its head with a level of vulnerability and realness as someone who is a practicing clinical psychologist for 25 years, as well as a community organizer and ancestral spirit root worker. So I invite you again to take that breath, take a moment, and let's reclaim our roots collectively. Thanks for being here. So today we welcome the wonderful, the fabulous Dr. Zelaika Hepworth Clarke Carnegie. Welcome.
Blessings in abundance.
Yes. I just have to say that you, my dear sis, are just a presence and a movement in yourself. Like you're just full. I don't know if I know anyone who is always in such a state of embodiment.
That embodied wisdom can be found in all of us.
Yeah, I love it. So I am going to introduce y'all to Dr. Zell, as well as I'm inviting you to also receive, y'all, some of this wordsmithing, some of this opulence, because I thought there is a beautiful piece of bringing in Dr. Zell's research, her writings, and I thought that this is also showing up in her bio in itself. So please receive. The Dr. Zelaika Hepworth Clarke Carnegie is an AASECT certified sexuality educator and AASECT certified sex therapist, as well as a, receive this, loveologist, cultural and clinical sexologist, Africa centered social worker, anti racist sexuality educator, decolonial eroticologist, decolonizing autoethnographer, and consultant. Dr. Hepworth Clarke is the first Jamaican-American, to earn 3 degrees in sexuality studies from accredited universities in the United States, a bachelor's from NYU in sexuality, culture, and oppression, a master's of education in human sexuality, and a doctorate of philosophy in human sexuality from the Center of Human Sexuality Studies at Widener University. Dr. Hepworth Clarke is currently an adjunct professor at Columbia University School of Social Work, and they're a graduate of the National Academy for African-Centered Social Work, as well as the International School of Transnational Decolonial Black Feminism in Brazil, SERVE, and the Decolonizing Knowledge and Power Summer School in Barcelona, Catalonia. They co-founded the anti-racist decolonial sexuality studies program at Goddard College. Woo! When do you rest? And co-created the decolonial sexual attitude restructuring reassessment, the DSAR, a sexuality training program that helps participants examine the impact of settler colonialism, white supremacy, capitalism, and cis hetero patriarchy on sex, gender, and relational dynamics. Hold up. We're not done, though. We are not done. I love all of this. As the director of the Pluriversity LLC, Dr. Hepworth Clarke offers decolonial guidance services, love education, consulting, and counseling with a commitment to increasing sexual, multi-epistemic, I know I said it wrong, but it's still right, literacy, erotic sovereignty, and sensual justice. Their work centers communities of the African diaspora, along with kinky, non-monogamous, queer, gender expansive, and erotically marginalized populations. Their approach integrates anti-erotophobic, anti-oppressive, and healing-centered approaches to support individuals and communities through transformative processes related to intimacy, eroticism, gender, sexuality, pleasure, and relationships. I would also add that Dr. Zell is an active supporter and lover of our decolonizing therapy office hours, a mama, parent, just a baddie. We've been talking about baddies a lot this season, and I think maybe this season shouldn't be the Marrow of, it should be the baddies of, because everybody popping on is just bringing so much love and goodness. The other piece I want to bring in is Dr. Zell and I were talking about when we hung out first, and it was back in 2019 in Jersey City, New Jersey, on Lenni Lenape land. Thank you very much. So Dr. Zell and I go way back, down to having worked with and attended similar institutions. We talked about it, commiserated about some of those experiences, perhaps, maybe hypothetically. And for the altar, I decided to bring moon water. What is more primal, erotic, and loving? So the other night, when there was a big old full moon, this super moon, it was hella big. I just felt my spirit team and my ancestors like, girl, put some water out there. And I don't always do it. But there was something about it that was like, yeah, I'm going to want this for later. Maybe I want to anoint myself with it. Maybe I want to put a little bit in my drink. Maybe I want to. So I am bringing some beloved moon water with a citrine and quartz crystal inside on our altar to honor you and all of the re-education that you give us and all the embodied sexual decolonial badassery. Thank you for being here, Dr. Zell. Welcome.
Thank you for inviting me.
How are you today? How's your body feeling today?
I am feeling joy.
We love this. Yes. And could you tell us, like that bio was badass. Yeah. Um, and I know for myself, when someone is reading my bio, I have this like cringy moment. But I've been learning to be with it, and to honor it. And I'm wondering, what is that like for you to hear that? How do you receive it? And yeah.
Yes, I it's been a long way on my journey towards decreasing the distance towards liberation and the decolonial turn, and I have been putting in some work, and those words, remind me of the work that I have put in, and that I it almost gives me permission more to rest because I've done some work. It's not to say
Mm.
that the work isn't done, but I have put in some work and I can celebrate and relish in the things that I have done in the past that my present self can thank my past self for.
Yes, I love this. And so if listeners out there are like, oh my gosh, and usually that's how it works, right? Like sometimes I stumble upon a podcast and it isn't always about the host, but it's like, I need to know about this person. Like, who are they? And so if you're feeling that drawn to-ness to Dr. Zell, and Dr. Zell, in your words, what do you do, honey? What does your day-to-day look like? What does a sexologist do? Like, how do you help bring more awareness, identity? What does that embodiment of your teaching and work look like in relationship to your bio?
Yeah. I mean, I like to identify as a co-liberator, co-decolonizer, as I work with reminding folks of their embodied wisdom, their erotic intelligence, their relational intelligence, their somatic intelligence, their ancestral intelligence, and all of the wisdom that is inside us, but might be dormant or might not have access to it because of the colonial systems that have been um, doing work on us subconsciously, consciously. So kind of peeling away those forces and yeah, so it is a lot of relationality and how I relate to myself, to others, to the air and the earth and the water, and, collaborating. Yeah, like, there's a lot of power in, some of these positions inherently if someone's coming for so-called help or support or assistance or guidance. I like to share that, it's courageous and bold to embrace a change that you may not be aware of what that looks like, and I
Mhm.
like to support folks align themselves with future better versions of themselves that they want and hold them accountable for their own desires with ethics.
Yeah, we love this. So you're currently also providing therapy, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah. And so what might be some of the reasons that folks come in to see you? What does it look like? Give us a little taste of what it looks like to sit in space with Dr. Zell, or what is some of the topics that might come up that you really specialize in?
Yeah, I have a range of collaborators that come for support, and a lot of them might have had negative experiences with previous therapists, and so kind of supporting them and relearning that that healing is still making healing accessible to them. And so I specialize in working with erotically colonized folks or just like multiply oppressed folks and not pathologize them, which I've been trained to do. But how can we rehumanize and even reframe it in a way that's more in alignment with our liberation? And so, yeah, I think it's a lot of people who are in um, unconventional relationships that the therapist, typical previous therapist might want to focus on things that they're not trying to focus on. So I can really work with folks on what they want to work on as opposed to what we might have been trained to think that they should be working on, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Abs- Absolutely. Absolutely. So what is an erotically colonized person?
I
What
don't know.
what
I,
is
I
that?
imagine it could be anyone, but someone
Mm.
who wants to unlearn aspects of how their sensuality, their spirituality, their sexuality has been negatively harmed by colonialism. And that shows up in very interesting ways. Usually, our complicity in white supremacy characteristics or culture that we might not even be aware of, or how our privileges prevents us from knowing another side of a perspective that is important to consider and not get caught up in this one way of knowing, the one way of knowing. I love the work that I love to do is when I can expand consciousness in ways that it can't go back to old dimensions, that it can open you up and getting back in touch with your power.
I love that, which clearly colonization and all forms of supremacy, right, continues to chip away at. Like it's not a thing from the past, as you and I know very well. And for anyone listening, right, colonization and the ways that we talk about it, there's nothing metaphorical about it. Our bodies are also connected to land, to nature, right? We are an ecosystem. Our African ancestral technology show us that right that we are not separate, and so colonization has and does impact the past. It impacted the land as well as our connection to the land and how we think, how we relate, how we whether or not we're in our body and allowed to be sexual, I would imagine. Yeah.
Well,
So like when did this yummy revolutions start for you? This sort of like sensual and erotic consciousness. When did that start for Dr. Zell in your own life? Like, was it culture? Was it family? Was it like what? How'd that come about?
I like to go back to the story of my birth. A My mom's an identical twin, and they're mirror twins. One's left-handed, one's right-handed, one's gay, one's straight. They have different things going on. And I guess by default, if I had my two moms and one's gay, one's straight, that would just make me bi. That's how I did the math. Or my mom was racialized as white, my dad was racialized as black. That must make me gray, which I found out was not a construct. Um, so and then the more awareness, and I think moving from Turtle Island to Jamaica and back and forth, seeing that what I might have taken for granted in one place can't be assumed in another. And even how my body was read was different. So I started to pick up on subjectivity and that what I uh yeah, like that there's different ways of understanding myself and there's different interpretations that other people have of me than I have of myself. And to so yeah, I think it's a internal wisdom, it's an ancestral wisdom, an ancestral joy, and a collective wisdom. It's in my embodied wisdom and it's in the ecosystems. To me, it's almost everywhere. I chill out with the plants and the bees, and I'm starting to see some important exchange that leads to growth. Um, Growing up on an organic vegetable farm, there are seasons. There's a process of growth, there's harvesting
Mm.
and readjusting and plant rot and the pH levels of the water, it gets so deep, but the sun is so powerful. And so I think it's in multiple places. And
That's
that combination of multiple places allowed me to tune into the pluriverse, which is from the Zapatista movement in Mexico that speaks to there can be multiple worlds that exist simultaneously without hierarchy. I may
mm,
be in my own world over here, and you can be in your own world over there, and we can still be valid and human, er, and contribute to our community and family. As
beautiful.
opposed to like, I am, this is the one way, and
Mm.
yeah.
I love that. Right, there's something so deeply patriarchal as well, and like kind of crunchy about this one way, right? Like needing to for it to be one way, or understanding the erotic one way. And I always admired that about you, that you've really expanded that for me. You embodied it. You would come into class. I remember you telling me teaching and an embodiment of what you were going to teach and co-learn with your students that
Mhm.
day. Like I remember you telling me that, and I thought, oh yeah, I'm very drawn to people that can honor you. What did you call it? And the Zapatista movement, the pluriverse.
Yes.
Like that's I didn't know that word before, so thank you. But I can feel
Mhm.
it. Does that make
Yeah.
sense? Like I could
Yeah.
feel it.
Yeah, because the universe is that one. And when you think of how the white man, operationalized, defined universe, it's coming like the world. Yeah. The universe is so expansive. And, I think what also you're touching on is the academic jargon of multi-epistemic. Epistemology is the way of knowing, and what is a colonial epistemology is this one way of knowing. So it's monoepistemology, one way, one religion, one gender is above the rest. And so multi-epistemic disrupts that assumption, and it just acknowledges that there are multiple ways of knowing, multi-epistemic. So there's that word in there. And I love when I can share that there are multiple ways of understanding love, of understanding our body, of understanding self, of understanding land and water and all the things. And I love when I can know a little bit more of what I didn't even know I didn't know. I love knowing more of that. Even though the more I know, the more I realize how much I don't know. But I love wisdom and knowledge and words that support liberation.
Yes. Oh, we love this about you. Uh, you you named yourself as a Jamaican sexographer. Yes. Even I love.
American sexosopher.
Yes, tell us
Right.
about that.
So Jamerican, Jamaican, and American. And sexosophy is the philosophy of sexuality. And so I studied pre-colonial African conceptualizations of sexuality and gender and relating. And so it kind of speaks to the philosophy of sex. And um I tend to there's a lot of different sexologists, so many out there, and there's different specialties and rabbit holes and ways to align your interests and supporting others. And I tend to do heavy theory, intellectual work for my people. And um that yeah, it was also like a fading language that I didn't really read, but when I was deep in the literature, I was reading, well, we know about sexology, but no one's talking about sexosophy, which really includes the value systems in how we understand and includes to me, philosophy. So now we're talking about ethics. To me, we're talking about aesthetics. We're talking about cosmology and ontology, how we be, and how epistemology, the way we think, or how wisdom or knowledge is transmitted and understood. And so all of that. And yeah, having a word to acknowledge the work that I've done and to claim it and even have some self-determination in what it means for me. Doesn't have to be, 'cause I've read a white man wrote that word. But it's I I can claim it because it can work for what I'm doing. So, even in my work now, I was invited to decolonize social work. It's like, ooh, I love that. Yes, it's, they have a different idea of what that looks like, and I'm in an institute, but I still can my as much pedagogical freedom as I can and really staying in alignment with my authenticity, I can bring my perspectives with my areas of interest that I have had the privilege of investigating and exploring and embodying and learning and unlearning.
Beautiful. That's beautiful. And we need that. And we need you because if they're going to co opt it anyway, right, then might as well let those of us that have been doing the work like yourself for such a long time and you were born as an embodiment of it, if I may say so. Like, might as well pay us for our own people so that we can get it straight, right? And teach it, teach the children well. So, what does the erotic mean to you outside of a colonial system? The way that coloniality has defined what erotic is or how it's been commodified. What does erotic mean to you outside of that?
Power.
Mm,
I have to go back to my lord, Audre Lorde, who speaks of the erotic as power. And y'all better listen to this speech. I listen to it often. It is so powerful. And I think she really articulated eroticism in a way that is still expanding me, revisiting her words. So definitely check that speech out. And that's where I base. When I say eroticism, I'm not talking about arrows from Europe, and that was probably Columbus from Africa. I'm talking about I just start from how Audre Lorde articulated that. And she doesn't it's not pornographic. It is not even it doesn't necessarily have to be um sexual. It's usually sensual though, and it is definitely a power and a life force. It is a creative energy. It is yeah, I think the simplest way I can put it is a type of power that we have that moves through us, and I think it my interpretation of it is it has an opportunity for glimmers, moments of things that can bring you joy and a sense of safety and tapping into your own subjective embodied wisdom around what actually feels good to you, regardless of what you think you're supposed to feel. What is actually feeling good? What lights you up? What are the things or the aspects that can push you towards a euphoric threshold?
yes. Thank you for that. That's the word, the wordsmithing. I'm just letting that kind of roll over me. Thank you. I'm thinking this is reminding me of like read some of your work related to the body as an ecosystem, And you've mentioned it in so many ways, down to how you grew up. Did you say like on a farm?
Mhm.
Yeah, essentially. And I think I remember seeing pictures of you with your moms and like all this beautiful greenery and roughage around you. And
Yes,
you have two twins. Yeah.
I do.
As
Yes.
well. So, well, first, I think I have like a personal question. What is it like coming from a mama that is an identical twin to going to birthing these twins? And I think that both of us are very familiar with some of that meaning in Ifa and Santeria and African cosmologies, Ibeji, like what,
Invasion.
yeah, that's deeply, deeply anointed and special. And I just wondered if you had any thoughts about that for anyone that was listening.
When people There's so many comments that I get around twins and misconceptions and some really interesting myths that I try to combat, but I do find so much power in the Ifa psychology or way of knowing about Ibeji or twins. And it invites a joyfulness and a playfulness, which most children embody, but the twins are notorious for feeding off of each other and um, having a joyful energy. And I always long to be a twin. I love twins. I was always fascinated by twin studies, and my mom was a twin, and I just, there was something that it was like a refl having a mirror be ref is so reflective, and the mirror has a lot of medicine within itself and the symbolism of a mirror, but having twins be a mirror and be good with their mirror neurons firing too. Um, I interpret it as a blessing in abundance, and I
Mm.
celebrated my body's ability to sustain them, and then I suddenly realized why or that I had the privilege of having 2 arms and 2 breasts because I breastfed them, I chest fed them, I body fed them for 48 months. Okay, that's 3.5 years.
Beautiful.
And that was it was a lot, but, um, it taught me a lot, and it's interesting now they'll ask to sit on my laps, and they say it in the plural, and I was like, "That makes sense, I'm not gonna correct you because I do have 2 legs, and I can fit both of you on my lap right now." Um, so it's a sacred relationship. I mean,
Mm.
all relationships can be sacred, but I think there's something very magical about how twins move and how they grow together, and, I get to witness that in my family.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. I could just imagine it's like this overabundance of love and joy. And again, I think that you really do embody that, like a level of joy. Even when you checked in, you're like, joy. And I'm like, wow, as someone who I feel like melancholy is like a normal state for me. you know, I really just honor this ability to be in your full embodied erotic joy. Do you think that motherhood has its own eroticism to it? And I don't even know if those two words in this world, we don't
I
normally
think
see
it
them go together.
can. I
Yeah.
do. I think they
Yeah.
don't want us to know about that. And I think there's so much pressure to de-eroticize ourselves as the mother, and there's been co-opting into what that means, service and sacrifice and, work. And I constantly have to reframe from that and free myself from those limited narratives that aren't conducive to my liberation and rethinking about who I am as I nurture and support these littles in hoping to have them understand their purpose and the ways that they can contribute to culture, society, community.
Yeah. I love that. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. And so, okay, big question. So there are listeners out there that are thinking, I want to do more of this work. I want to help the erotic show up in a way that is like non-gendered and not in this box, that thinks outside of the box of gender identity and sexual orientation and includes it, right? It's both and this like both and thinking. And I want to make sure I'm not learning in a highly white ass Eurocentric way, right? As you said, where everything is very uni, self, individualistic, me and mine, historically, right? We're unlearning. Many people are unlearning, but historically. And so, what are some practices that folks can do to start as a therapist or a social worker, a coach, a helper, a peer support person? What are some things folks can do to involve a little bit more of the decolonial erotic, shall we
Mm.
say?
Mm. The word that comes to mind is blisscipline. It's bliss and discipline. I'm just gonna freestyle the definition, but I should probably look up the official one. But it's really the discipline of creating blissful moments in our life. And I do this around joy. Like at some point I was just like seeking joy, but I am taking responsibility for my joy. So even as I was answering your question, how you felt, I did a little work. I was like, how do I want to feel and how can I embody that, embrace that, and manifest that in this moment? It is possible in this micro moment to really be in alignment with how I want to be, but there's some work because there was a little there's I'm going through a lot. There's a lot that I feel right now. Let me
Ooh,
just highlight one to share. And yes, because I'm also mourning, but I'm also celebrating. I can embody the complexities. How what ca Yeah, so I think about identifying your own glimmer. I think about, okay, what is the best advice you dishing out? Are you also receiving that own advice? Because 'Cause I'd be good at giving some real good advice, but then I'm like, "Oh, this actually could probably apply to me, so I need to practice walking that walk as
word.
well." And so I think that's part of the work. I think of tuning into your senses, not limited to the 5 senses that they only want us to know, but there are more senses and, um, nature, spending time with nature, reconnecting with aspects of nature, and knowing what your medicines are. I don't know. You get to decide. Different wounds require different medicines. I love music. I love twerking. I love Um, what do you love? Bringing more of that. How are you spending your how there's time management, which am struggling with, and there's energy management, which we can be mindful of what our capacity is. The other work I like to start at is decolonizing the mind. Neuro decolonization. I'm so I'm really messing with neuroscience right now because the whole neuroplasticity really helped, like, give me permission, like, "Yeah, we can unlearn this." Just because 'cause I'm thinking
Yes.
real I am so negative, my thoughts, I got a lot of I I c I can worry. I know how to worry real good, but
Same.
there's some indigenous wisdom that came to me that was like worrying. Oh, I heard like worrying is a misuse of imagination, so I was like, maybe I need to imagine something different. But I also heard that worrying is like a reverse prayer. So I'm like,
Mm,
"Ooh,
mm.
let me." if I I'm not trying to reverse these prayers, like, okay, let me get clarity on what I really should be praying for, what I really want. And so this brings me to another word, pronoia. Okay, so you
Mm.
have paranoia, where I'm just really good at thinking about the worst case scenarios, right? But the pronoia piece is almost the antidote, maybe. I don't know, to simplify it, the opposite. But it is the pluriverse, and said, well, the universe is, what if it's conspiring to shower you with blessings? What if? What if? And so my brain's really good at what if worst case scenario, really, really good at. And then even as a mother, I didn't even know I could imagine how bad things could be to imagining how bad it just got real creative there. But then what I need to start doing is neurogenesis around working my brain for creating new neural pathways or new ways of thinking that haven't been traveled so frequently because I've been caught up in the more traveled neural pathways of the negative mentalities, but to really embody this possibility that the blessings are coming, that we can dream and imagine a new, better future, futuristic, futurity. Um, so it's some work, and everyone has work to do. And so the other word is auto decolonization.
Mm.
Auto meaning self and decolonization. So how am I decolonizing myself? So the first thing, I'm increasing the awareness of how I've been colonized, or my proximity, or participation in all types of hierarchies. And as much as, I be against that white capitalistic cis heteropatriarchy all day. I be fighting that. I've been fighting that for a really long time, and I'm still committed to fighting it. However, I also need to use my energy management in imagining something different. So,
Mm.
abolitionists, right? Or just dreamers.
Yes.
That the dream work is very important for
Yes.
for addressing injustices.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so I guess it's making space to imagine something different, imagine more the decolonial turn, imagining a decolonial sextopia, or just being able to relate relationally, ethically, with pleasure, being unapologetically centered, and in an abundance consciousness kind of way, without the toxic positivity somehow.
That's beautiful. That is beautiful. Thank you. We're really holding and receiving that. And I'm holding on to this like auto decolonization. Yeah. Like, how do we really turn that consistently within and look in all the ways that colonization has like impacted how we think, right? And how we see ourselves, what we worry about. Like you said, I love all of this. Yeah. So, what do you want for all people and bodies? And in particular, maybe Black, Brown, Indigenous bodies, like people that really are the global majority. What do you want for us?
Emancipation, liberation. I want the end of all genocides, femicides, negrocides,
Mm.
episticides, menticides, um, ecocides, linguicides. What? No, the destruction of people need to stop. I think about peace, and I think about relating, and I think about, yeah, what do I want I want clean air and water, and I want land back, and uh, just access to multiple ways of knowing,
Yeah.
and to we have the right to know ourselves outside of a white capitalistic cis heteropatriarchal colonial mentality, and a lot of us don't have access to that. So, But yeah, I guess I just go back to the basics. I hope for everyone like, where's the universal income?
Yes.
There's enough for us all for no one to be there's enough food for no one to be hungry, and unfortunately, there are people starving to death as I speak to that. So, I can't help it's all intersectional for me, it's all interconnected. Food apartheid, food injustice, food deserts. We need access to food. We need
Yes.
disability justice. We need reproductive justice. We need autonomy. We need self-determination, self-actualization. There's a lot
Yes.
that is our
Yes.
right. We have a right to pleasure. We have a right to abundance.
Yes, we do. Yes,
That's
we
what I would
do.
like for us.
I love that. I frequently think about how there's such a correlation and a connection between the very purposeful starvation of people and peoples and our emotional nourishment and being starved in that way as well. Like that really truly colonization does not just operate on physical land in a physical world. It is spiritual warfare as well. It is psychological warfare. Yeah, right? Like, it's epistemology. Oh, I can never say that
Yeah.
word.
Epistemological warfare.
Boop, right there. So
Damn.
how, Dr. Zell, for folks that are like, okay, so I live with a lot of trauma and my body frequently doesn't feel safe, but I deserve pleasure too. And I deserve care and I want to be more connected to my erotic self. How might one navigate pleasure and trauma simultaneously? Is that possible?
Yeah, I think so. I think we can do a lot. But being honest with what we might have capacity for in any given moment, subject to change, you're not obligated to be consistent with your past. And so I think about tapping into your healing intelligence.
Mm,
And I also think about ancestral wisdom and things that we might not be aware of due to our colonial conditioning that might be supportive systems that are working for us. I think about very limited ways of understanding trauma and victimhood. And so continuing to expand that and not realize that there's no one way of being. And even if you've been a certain way, one thing I would like to make very clear what you've been through or what was done to you does not have to limit you. And I think about these narratives of victimhood where it's like we're damaged, we're broken, there's something wrong with us now, as opposed to an atrocity that we managed to overcome and tap into the survival uh aware of the techniques that allowed us to make it through. I don't know, I think there's like a superpower and a wisdom that gets forcibly activated to people who have been through some stuff. And I don't know what blessings. I think pronoia is not necessarily trauma informed because it's like, yeah, tell us black folks that the world is conspiring in our favor when all this oppressive forces is but I still want us to have the audacity to imagine that. And sometimes we need more audacity and courage to remind us of a transformed way of being and reconnecting with ourselves and remembering our power. That is harder to access when we've been violated.
yes, it is.
And we don't necessarily have liberatory language to interpret our experience. We really are very limited in how we can, like, what? We're using English to try to heal? Like,
Word.
I think that's gonna come with inherent limitations that I can't even see because there's more to it. But I'm limited because I speak English. So now I am is away from you, and hierarchy is ingrained in the language and the syntax of the sentence structure that I'm used to understand my experience. Another word that's coming to mind, hermeneutical injustice.
Mm.
Let
What
me
is
try
that?
to let me try to break that down. Okay, it's a type of epistemic injustice. So when I think of epistemic violence, I think of like racism or whiteness that gets ingrained in our ways of knowing. And so hermeneutical is like the experience and the narrative. So hermeneutical injustice is basically when there, due to structural inequality, there are a limitation in the shared knowledge, language, and concepts society uses to interpret the world, and therefore there's a limitation in how we can understand ourselves. Okay, so the classic example is like sexual harassment. It didn't just come up when the word was invented. I think it came out, like, in the 1900s. Like, that doesn't say that sexual harassment wasn't there, but do you know how hard it was for people to articulate sexual harassment without the language, and therefore even understand their interpretation of what they were happening because there was not a way of there wasn't language to discuss that? So that's the violence that can occur. Or yeah, so that's like the classic example that I like. So, um, or yeah, so or even understanding victimhood outside of pathology. So I feel like we are subject to this violence of the way we interpret ourselves as it relates to our trauma. And there's
Mm.
something missing. I can't quite put my finger on it, but this is the word that is helping me start to articulate that
Mm.
there's something missing from the
Yes.
ways that I know embodied wisdom know that what someone did to me does not take away my worth. I know that, but then they told me that I was damaged. So then I
Mm.
consider that, and then I internalize it. So what do I need to externalize? And then again, it's not like I don't have access to other forms of ways of knowing necessarily around this, but I know in my body that this colonial Western way of even understanding, interpreting pain is limiting the way I'm experiencing my atrocities or the things that are happening to me or
Mm.
for me. Why is
I
this
love.
happening to me? That's a question. Why is this happening for me? What are the questions that we're asking ourselves what are the words that we're using? It's all very limited by English. And I just like to remind us that. So part of this work around is giving yourself permission not to be boxed in by a very limited way of understanding when our experiences and our embodied ways of our subjective understanding of our experiences can be more expansive to that and can still be in alignment with healing, justice, liberation. That doesn't have to be, yeah, like what's an anti-oppressive, pleasure-centered way of knowing how I've just overcome something that went down that I had no consent in.
Yes. I love all of this. This is just letting it pour over me. So, are there like two or three things that folks can do that are living with trauma and also, wanting to connect with their erotic embodied expression? Like, is there something consistently? And of course, it's not one size fits all. And a reminder, as always, people, this is not a replacement for therapy. This is our perspectives and wanting to share collectively with the world things that have worked for us or work with the people that we serve? Are there some things, yeah, Dr. Zell, that you notice?
Radical honesty requires radical receptivity. And I'm my biggest oppressor, but I'm also my biggest liberator. And there's a power of sharing your interpretation, your experiences, and having it witnessed and reconnecting with self, but or selves in a because I think of self, I think of so many aspects of myself. And perhaps the part of myself that is the CEO is the one that's really good at being a victim. But
Mm.
there's part of me that is empowered and or powerful and I don't know, optimistic or hopeful, and I want to fire or demote the aspect of self that has been taken up most and start to promote the aspect of myself that I wanna lean into more. So, I guess I mean, that sounds like a lot of parts work. It sounds like, um, a self-awareness that is shameless and
Mm.
honest
Mm.
and allows you to connect to your energy centers that have so much wisdom, like, from all kinds of places that we might not have been able to tap into. Yeah, that's some of the work. What can be done? You reconnect. You're breathing. You're you're hydrating. You're showering yourself with a love. One thing I do, I like to infuse water with the thing that I feel like I'm not lacking, like more love, 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 peace. Speaking the peace and the love, let my water be infused by love and peace. And let me drink that love infused, peaceful. Because water can hold memory, right? So I'm going to like do its own neuroplasticity. Let
Yes,
me try to
yeah.
decolonize the water. Let me decolonize the water and have the
You,
water and
yeah,
let me drink some decolonized water and see what happens. Now, some people do this exercise and they might purge. There might be things that need to come out that is not gonna be working too well with a love infused. Let that self-hate get out your body. Shake it out. But
yes,
yeah, like
yeah,
what are you holding on to that no longer serves you to make room for more of what you need more of? And so just a simple like I'm breathing in love and breathing out hate, or whatever. I try not, yeah.
yeah,
I'm guided by love instead of fear. I have to reframe myself all the time. Um, but yeah, so connection, love, imagination,
mm,
creativity, power, wisdom, healing, and all that can be found internally. And hopefully also supported and reinforced by a curated group or individuals or I don't know, plant babies to yeah, so caring for yourself and sometimes that's not possible, but there's also we need to do more about collective care and normalizing that and nurturing that. And so I think of global, thinking local and acting and global. Like there's a lot internally and then there's stuff out here. So
yes. I love that. And I am also really big on speaking into my water, writing on my water jars, speaking into my cat's water. I recently go to a local water bar because I don't drink. And I go to a local water bar, and A, it's like really communal, but B, it's amazing to see folks come in and fill up their jars. And then there's these little affirmation cards. So they already do their own, like it is in it's very clean water, especially in my area. That's really important because the water is not, it's kind of killing us. Am I allowed to say that? Yeah. But it's also activated by shungite and clear quartz, and they show you where it is. And so people are there filling up their gallons and their water jars that are BPA free or glass or any of these things, and also putting under it like love, reciprocity, focus, passion, right? And we're quiet while the person is doing that. And it's kind of a beautiful, at first I'm like, oh, do I need to pay for my water? Is it cheap? But it is, I noticed such a difference in my body and my cat's health and my own, and in a sense of just little moments of gratitude. Like,
Mhm.
right? Like stopping to like
Oh,
bless
yeah.
the
Yeah.
thing, to honor, like, thank you, entity. Thank you, something
Yes.
that I take for granted. Thank you,
Yes.
water, right? That is like supposed to be natural and free and constantly giving, which brings me to beautiful mother, Muvva Oshun. Uh, I was wondering, in a few words, do you want to tell us a little bit about your love or connection or your affinity with Oshun? And I don't know. I like to believe that she is the original decolonial baddie, with all respect. Yeah, if you could tell us. Yeah, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that. That's
Yes. Yeye Oshun. Um, it's hard to put into words this flow, this energy of love. And I always get intimidated, even like, how would I even do any kind of justice? Because it's so multifaceted and complex and simple and deep and shallow. It's all of it. It's all of it. Um, I get so my journey towards how almost Oshun found me was I was studying, I was trying to figure out what I was gonna do my dissertation on, and I really was, suffering with, uh, savior complexity and wanting to go and help and heal, rape survivors and, people who survived war and all this great things that I wanted to do as a young scholar. And so I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna study Black healing techniques from Black women healing techniques." And I took this to different, a leading sexuality researcher, and I would think I was studying in the University of Amsterdam at the time, and she was like, "Oh, Black men rape?" And I was like, "What? No, this is how you're gonna distort my research? Oh, no, I'm gonna let this one go, even though it's my life passion, that's what I was gonna do. No, I'm letting it go." And so I was like, "Oh gosh, now I'm back to square one. I thought I knew what I was gonna do, and now I'm not gonna be doing that because I don't not trying to have." So I was reading African Sexualities, a reader by, oh, ooh, Tamale. This is her new book, Decolonization and Afrofeminism. And anyway, so there's a chapter on there around oceanality. And oceanality is African sensuality. It is affirming the normality of pleasure and eroticism in all of its diversity. And I was like, "What is that? That's different." And my colonial mind was starting to disintegrate.
as it loves to do, right?
And I read more, and oceanality has this concept. Okay, it might be a little off topic, but basically, oceanality is ocean sexuality. And so, this is how I found oceanality, is because there was a neologism created in this African sexuality readers that I was now in. It was the spirit was, I was drawn to this work. They had it was decolonial. They call it post-colonial, which it is that too, but it has a sexual wisdom that has nothing to do with patriarchy. It has nothing to do with Western philosophy. It is all ancient pre-colonial African conceptualizations of pussy power. Excuse my French or English, but it is, and so they have this thing called the devouring vagina in Oceanality, which
Oh.
talks about heterosex and the aesthetic of the penis disappearing in the vagina and that the vagina engulfs, it surrounds, and the penis surrenders and agency is assigned to the vagina, and the act of devouring something isn't, it still provides nutrients. Like there is it was such a different perspective than like, maybe the penis is gonna conquer the vagina, let's beat it up, hit it, that kind of colloquialisms. And so, yes, I fell in love with Oceanality, and of course, I fell in love with Oshun because that's where the wisdom came from. That's how it was articulated. And so another um interpret or translation is Oshun's honey. And there's a sweetness that we still can have access to despite a lot that's happening. And there's so many stories, there's so many important wisdom of Oshun, and I don't even know which one to pick, but the one around Oshun's honey that's coming to mind is how she was able to um, get Ogun back from secluding in the forest because we needed Ogun for technology and for metals and transportation and smith's work, and so the world was really suffering without him, and a lot of people try, or a lot of Orishas tried to entice him, use force, use all kinds of things to try to get him back, and Oshun kind of used her sensuality, and she just was bathing in the water and laughing and giggling and just maybe probably singing and dancing and doing her thing, and then that kind of caught Ogun's eye, like, "Ooh, what's over there?" And so she went past him and she put a little honey on his lip, and he tasted the honey, and he was just, she kind of like lured him out and saved humanity. That's one. I was gonna say I'm not a good storyteller, but I'm working on becoming a better storyteller. That's my
Mm.
rendition. So those aren't the exact words, right? But that's like the gist of how I got it. And there's a sweetness that might be available to us to support our growth and development. And so this is a concept that is pleasure centered.
Ooh.
It is growth. It is um conception, and a lot of these things don't have to be interpreted literally. There's multiple ways of even interpreting stories and many lessons that can be given, and people get their own um interpretation. And so it Oshun reminds me of reflection, and um there's so many lessons. I can't even summarize the lesson, but let me tell you what she did for me is I used I started embodying how learning about oceanality was freeing myself from Western ways of knowing. And
Mm.
so I framed my research question: how can I emancipate myself from white capitalistic cis heteropatriarchy mentality of gender and sexuality? So that was my research question. And so the answer, so I set it up. So the answer was oceanality. Oceanality is one probably of many, but right now is how I was able to emancipate myself. And I also think that that question set me up for a little self-fulfilling prophecy, like really
Mm.
committing myself to how I free myself, and
Mm.
really engaging in that
Mhm.
practice. I used a
Yes.
lot of mindfulness as neuro decolonization. and that's where I was studying myself. I originally ended up by default studying myself because I wanted to mitigate, potential homonegativity that could come out of um, my co-researchers, or what we might know as the researched, um, the people who already know what this is without the language, because they know about the technology and nature. And so for me, the gifts that Oshun gave for me was emancipation and finding an erotically liberated moment where I was in Brazil on this beautiful beach on this island outside of Salvador, the Bahia, and and it was the perfect temperature for me, and the breeze was doing breezing things, and the sun was shining, and I was admiring the sun. I was really appreciating the sun. I mean, at first I was like, what if the sun wasn't there? I didn't even wanna take for granted the sun. I was like, "Oh," and then I was like, "I don't know how the plants would go." Like, I would be cold. Like, I couldn't even imagine the world without my universe without the sun. Like, I could not. And I just started loving on the sun so much, so deeply. I also felt the sun loving on me to the
Mm,
point where it was an embodied. I'm like, my body knew pleasure in how the sun was giving to me, and my skin almost became the sex organ to receive the sun kisses and the sun rays penetrating me, and, like, my sweat was my euphoric juices, and, like, my sunscreen was my condom and protecting force. And so my colonized version was like, "Are you fucking the sun? Are you making love with the sun?" And then I was like, "Oh, well, yeah, ecosexuals can rock, they rock with they can rock with erotically, sexually with aspects of nature. Okay, maybe I'm just having my ecosexual moment." But I was practicing, mindfulness and not judging myself, and being in a open, like, beginner's mind, and really trying not to have a colonial interpretation of my experience, and it opened up this moment that my body knew that I had a moment of pleasure that could be interpreted outside of white capitalistic cis heteropatriarchy. And so thank you, Oshu, for allowing me to give myself permission to feel my embodied wisdom and know
mhm,
pleasure.
mm. Thank you, thank you, thank you for that. And for anyone sitting there like, "Ooh, oh my gosh, what does that mean? I'm uncomfortable." And that is a beautiful place for you to begin to investigate what turns you on, what is erotic to you, what does pleasure mean? How have we been conditioned to assume that pleasure is one way or another? What is healthy? What is not? So thank you. Thank you for, I don't want to even say normalizing, but uplifting and inviting us all deeper into our own eroticism and autoerotic decolonial
So
sexuality. So thank you for that. I could listen to you all day. I think you're a really beautiful storyteller, actually. But alas, I want to honor our container. And so before I ask you where folks can find you and all of that good ish, I'm wondering, do you think, how do I say this? I have so many questions for you, but I'm like, no, put it in one simple way. What is something you continue to do that saves your life, that saves you? Like, what is one thing that you keep doing, giving, you embody, that you feel allows you to continue, that you'd like to share with others, that maybe they could use, that they could, something tangible that they could say, ah, yeah, thank you for that. I know it's a big question.
well, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is breathing and the power of breath, and just thinking about breathing outside of a colonial mentality, because it's a way we can connect to air and each other and trees. And I also think about disrupting time a little bit, colonial time. So I'm thinking about temporal sovereignty, and I've been really starting to dig into African ways of knowing and sensing time, which has been so liberatory. Like, oh my gosh, I can't even get my head around it, but I'm going to keep working at it. I give myself permission to be at whatever level of consciousness or ability I am at that moment. And I bring time in it because I have only little micro moments that might be available to me. And I used to think about the energy that goes on to the new, like, new year, that new year, new me. Like, there's a vibe in that new year where there's a lot of intentionality that gets harnessed, I think. And what I learned from native, uh, land stewards of the East as they appreciate the sunrise authentically every day was even that it was almost like the new year energy was in that new sun energy of the day. So I was like, okay, we do it yearly. Nays maybe doing it daily, probably even more. But then what was it? There's something about every heartbeat is an opportunity to do something different that I'm not obligated to be consistent with my past. So I can start to imagine different versions of myself that I'd like. What is something I could do today that a future version of myself might thank me for? Grounding myself in gratitude and the things that I do have access to that I yeah, that so there's a gratitude that I think is very important practice, breathing and connecting to different versions of yourself, but also imagining future versions of yourself. And that is what saves me. These micro moments that I can imagine the world being different and better than it is in this current moment. The
I love that.
audacity to imagine.
Beautiful. So beautiful. Thank you, Dr. Zell. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Is there anything you want to say before we wrap up and before you tell us where we can find you and how to connect with you? Is there anything else you'd like the children's to know that are listening?
There's so much. And give yourself grace as you uh, embark on your journey towards liberation, towards decolonial futurities, and yeah, give yourself grace because we're still operating in a capitalistic, heteropatriarchal, violent society. So we there's there's yeah, we'll just give ourselves grace, and where any if you can offer yourself any forgiveness and calling in ease, inviting ease. I want to invite more ease into our life and sovereignty. It's hard to put into words, but there's a lot of beautiful words, and I'm not going to be limited by words. And so thinking about the things that limit you and becoming a possibility of not being limited by the things that previously limited you and um connecting with reminders to reframe ourselves in ways that are more in alignment with our embodied, liberated self.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Zelaika, for your presence in this world and all you bring. So, how can folks best find you? Of course, we'll have all the links, all of the good stuff, as well as a few of the things you mentioned for if Ifa and Orishas and that very ancient not just religion, spirituality, but ancestral intelligence, cosmology is new to you. We'll have some links in the show notes, as well as any of the books and authors that Dr. Zell mentioned. But Dr. Zell, how can we find you? How do you want people to best connect with you? And is there anything that you're popping off with that you want to tell us about?
I got a lot of exciting things in the work. I'm hesitant to share until I have it readily available, but
Fair.
I'm at Zelaika.com, Zelaika.com. And so I'll be updating it, but there you can access my email, and I do email people my dissertation that has a lot of the academic articulation of saying no to colonialism. And that's where I'm going to point people towards. I have really cool classes on erotic emancipation and some of my sexuality theories that support sexual healing. I have I'm already created African centered sex therapy. I'm working on cannabis assisted sex therapy and decolonial sexology. So I got a lot of really cool stuff coming out. But I'm gonna be more generous with my giving myself grace as I parent 4-year-old twins and not feel the internalized capitalism creeping up in my need to produce at a uh, in a timely
Yeah.
way. So
Thank you. Absolutely. Right. And fuck colonial time. Right. Because time is a colonial concept that has been don't get me started, but you get the
yeah.
point. You get the point
Yeah.
that we need more spaciousness. I've certainly been giving myself more spaciousness and grace and not rushing for anyone. Right. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for being. Thank you for your presence in this world. Thank you for all of your poetic, badass storytelling brilliance. You're fucking brilliant. Thank you for all of it. And thank you for being that embodiment and connecting us to that oceanality. You are phenomenal and we appreciate you, Dr. Zell. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for being you. Thanks for the work that you be doing, that you've done, that you are going to do. And thanks for being you. Listeners, too, thank you for being you, showing up, giving your time, energy, and attention. That's sacred and appreciated.
Thank you all. And remember, as Dr. Zell was saying, and we continue to uplift, you'll never again be in this place, in this space, at this time. Take a moment, take a breath. Maybe not in some cheesy ass mindfulness way, but like really take stock of something you feel grateful for, something that has allowed you, as Dr. Zell has said, to breathe, to be present with. We need you. We need all of us. From Root to Bone is a podcast from Decolonizing Therapy. It is hosted by me, Dr. Jen Mullan. Our producer is Tribble at Ash Tribble Incorporated. Original music by Laura Burke and cover art by Madre Shell. Don't forget to find us on Instagram at Decolonizing Therapy and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Decolonizing Therapy, for the full video version of each episode. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your people and leave us a 5-star rating wherever you listen to podcasts. It helps people find us. For more info about Decolonizing Therapy, visit our website, www.decolonizingtherapy.com. Be well.